Hello and welcome to the first video of what will be many videos of a series called Samantha Smith, The Mystery of Bar Harbor Flight 1808. My name's Gregory Green and I'll be discussing the life and death of Samantha Smith, the little girl in the photo who, in the midst of ascending tension between the United States and the Soviet Union during the peak of the Cold War in the mid-1980s, wrote a letter to Soviet President Yuri Andropov discussing her fears of nuclear war. She received a response and an invitation to the Soviet Union, and during her trip, she captured the hearts of the citizens of the Soviet Union and for a brief moment alleviated the tensions and fears between the two countries. She died tragically 2 years later in a plane crash on August 25th while returning home from filming a TV series she was working on, along with her father, Art Smith. And while many have forgotten her in the United States, she's remained somewhat of a rock star in the former Soviet Union. I'm assuming that if you're watching this video, then you already know how special she was and the tremendous things that she accomplished in her short but meaningful life. If you're not familiar with her, however, I will start this video by briefly covering her life and what she accomplished and hopefully be able to convey how special she was. After covering her life, I'll talk a little more about what will be covered in the entire video series at the end of this about her life and death, as it deserves far more attention than it's received. Starting with her life, Samantha was born on June 29th, 1972, in the small town of Holton, Maine, which is way up north in Maine, right on the border of Canada. Her father, Arthur, worked at Ricker College up there, and Ricker College closed in the late 1970s. And following that, the family moved to Manchester, Maine, just outside of Augusta, where Arthur wound up getting a job at the University of Augusta. And it was there in Manchester where Samantha wrote a letter. Actually, when she was 5 years old, I believe she wrote a letter to Queen Elizabeth at her Jubilee. I can't remember if it was Diamond or whatever, but she actually wrote a letter to Queen Elizabeth first. But in 1982, when seeing this Time magazine article with Yuri Andropov as he was taking over for Brezhnev, she was sitting with her mother, Jane, and asked her mother, Jane, if she would write a letter to Yuri Andropov discussing the fears about nuclear war. And Jane actually suggested that Samantha should write the letter. So after reading that article, Samantha wrote a letter, and here it is. It said, "Dear Mr. Andropov, my name is Samantha Smith. I'm 10 years old. Congratulations on your new job. I've been worrying about Russia and the United States getting into a nuclear war. Are you going to vote to have a war or not? If you are not, please tell me how you are going to help to not have a war. This question you do not have to answer, but I would like to, if you would. Why do you want to conquer the world, or at least our country? God made the world for us to share and take care of, not to fight over or have one group of people own it all. Please, let's do what be wanted and have everybody be happy too. Samantha Smith, Manchester, Maine, USA. P.S. Please write back." And he did not write back. But in early April, the letter actually was in an article of Pravda, and it was at the top of the photo, which got back to Samantha, and Samantha decided to write to Yuri Andropov again, asking why she hadn't received a response. And she wrote another letter to Dobrynin in the Russian embassy in the U.S. And that letter got to Yuri Andropov, and on April 26, 1983, she received the response from Yuri Andropov. And here she is holding the letter from Andropov, and basically Andropov alleviated her fears about nuclear war, gave her a history lesson about the Soviet Union and the United States during World War II, compared her to Becky from Mark Twain, Tom Sawyer, and invited her to the Soviet Union. And what ensued after that was a big media frenzy trying to get Samantha's story. And so here's actually a newscast that explains what happened after she got the response from Yuri Andropov.
10-year-old Samantha Smith has become a national figure since receiving a reply to her letter from the Soviet leader. She's been whisked around the country in private planes, asked to address peace rallies, and has made numerous appearances on American television.
I was worried about nuclear war, and instead of writing to the president, which I've already been to Washington, D.C., and Yuri Andropov is more important, so I just thought it'd be more fun to write to him instead of President Reagan.
Samantha's home in the small town of Manchester, Maine, has been besieged by reporters, including a correspondent from Russian television, eager to discover why a young American girl should have even doubted for a moment that Yuri Andropov was anything but a champion of peace. Samantha and her parents have now accepted a personal invitation from Mr. Andropov to visit Russia. They'll leave in July. At a reception given in her honor by the governor of the local state, Maine, Samantha was told that she'd established communications between the United States and the Soviet Union based on honesty and trust. Quite a feat for a 10-year-old who says she never even expected to receive an acknowledgement from the Kremlin. Andrew Mandelstam, ITN, in the United States.
So she wound up going to Soviet Union in July, and this is a photo of her at the pioneer camp in Artek, which was probably the most famous portion of her trip to the Soviet Union. And here she is with all the other children. They all loved her, and it's very apparent in this video here. We'll take a look at this, and you can see how much of a welcome they gave to Samantha. I mean, they loved her in the Soviet Union.
It was to be a simple welcoming ceremony for Samantha at Artek, a Soviet youth camp. But oftentimes, the world's largest country does simple things in a big way. In this case, 2,000 uniformed young people and the communist youth group known as the Young Pioneers filled every seat of an outdoor theater to sing, clap, and give their American guest a warm hello. They filled her arms with flowers, and a young pioneer girl delivered a welcoming address in English. And then a gift, a token of bread and salt, which represents, in the words of the welcomer, peaceful labor and friendship.
So here she is walking with Jane and Arthur. That's Jane on the left and Arthur in the middle. And they wound up having an incredibly publicized trip. All of the news stations in the Soviet Union and the United States all battled for airtime. And so when she got back from the Soviet Union, she wound up getting a parade in her hometown. And also, she wound up going on numerous television shows, one including Johnny Carson when she got back. And I'll play a little bit of that right now. I thought this little clip from the interview with Johnny Carson was pretty amazing, and really shows how smart and just charismatic Samantha was, and how she could capture people very easily. And let's see, where is that? We'll bring it up here, and here we go.
It's like getting caught laughing in church, isn't it? All of a sudden it's on, you go, Yeah, we were talking. She said you was nervous. You're not really nervous. You're very calm tonight. Does anybody ever call you Sam instead of Samantha?
Most people do.
You like that? Or you prefer Samantha? Sam okay?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't make any difference. You were talking about these two friends you made, Nastasia and... Natasha. I don't speak Russian. Natasha and...
Gennady.
And you said they worked for the...
Friendship House.
Yeah. Did any of the people who met you at the airport speak any English at all?
Natasha is also my interpreter.
Ah.
So I got to be pretty close to her.
That's nice. Did you pick up any Russian at all? A few phrases?
Just a little bit.
What'd you learn?
Спасибо, очень хорошо.
Photo show.
Yeah? I don't know what any of those words mean.
Bolshoi.
Bolshoi ballet. You know what Bolshoi means, really?
Great.
Yeah, great, or big. That's all it
You said
means.
you didn't know any Russian.
No, I didn't. I knew what it meant.
And that was awesome. So after Johnny Carson, Samantha basically, settled back into her life in her hometown. Here she is in Manchester with a sign that says, "Congratulations, Samantha." And it died down a little bit, the excitement and everything. But then in September, there was a plane crash, KAL 007 plane crash that had Larry McDonald on board that got shot down over Soviet Union. And basically all of the good feelings that Samantha had brought in between the two countries from her trip and all of that came crashing down at that point and back down. So Samantha wound up, after that, she took a trip to Japan with her mother, Jane, and another peace trip. And in this one, she was famous for giving the speech suggesting a granddaughter's exchange between countries, because if you exchanged your grandkids, then that would lead to not wanting to fight each other. And that was basically the what happened on that trip there in Japan. There she is with her mom. Here she is. So when she came back from Japan, the first thing she did after that, and it was her first venture into basically kind of Hollywood, probably is what got her interested in Hollywood at any rate, was her doing a video for Disney about interviewing the Democratic candidates for the 1984 presidential election. And here's a little clip of it here. Let me bring it up and we can watch this. I think this is the intro.
Hi, I'm Samantha Smith. Most people know me as the girl who went to Russia, but now I'm going to Washington. The White House, the most famous house in America and the home of our president. Quite a few people are trying to get your vote so they can start living here next year. As a special correspondent for the Disney Channel, I'm going to track down and interview as many of the presidential candidates as I can.
And so she did it was about an hour and a half special, and I think she wound up interviewing all of them except for Walter Mondale and Gary Hart. I think those were the only two. And I think they actually had asked Ronald Reagan if he wanted to appear in it as well, and he basically politely declined that. So after that, Samantha settled back into Manchester again, and really she fell out of the limelight for the most part. And during this time, her father, Arthur, wound up taking over her career and basically getting her first start in Hollywood. Here's Samantha behind the camera. And that first, aside from the Disney production that she did, the first thing she did in Hollywood was to appear on an episode of Charles in Charge. in November of 1984. Just a brief cameo appearance, and I think she was on it with the Olympic star. Was it Julie McNamara? I can't remember exactly her name, but here's a little clip from that episode.
Spectrum presents,
and we've got
Ditch
an
the
ad
Dish with
first.
Kev on stage.
So,
What do you call a neighborhood
well,
filled with
that's
old
lovely.
satellite dishes they can't get rid of? A disaster area.
Switch to Spectrum Internet and TV for just $44.99 a month each when bundled.
Hey!
There she is.
Hey!
Hi, Charles. We're making an orange surprise cake.
What's the surprise?
Harold Lemsky.
My room. Come on.
But anyway, there she was in Charles in Charge. And then after Charles in Charge, and I believe it was right around Christmas, might have been right before the New Year or right after, I can't remember which. She visited the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C., and did a special with the Get Along Gang with them. And here's a quick clip of that, of her coming down and giving a quick press conference with her father here.
We can spare a few moments if you'd want to ask a few questions. We're on the way back to the embassy.
You're on the way back to what embassy? Back to what embassy?
Soviet embassy.
To the Soviet embassy. Samantha, could you tell us what happened inside?
Well, I gave a speech.
Microphone.
I gave a speech to the children. There were lots of children from the school, about 200 they say. And then we sang "May There Always Be Sunshine," which is a Soviet song. And then we sang "A Small World." And then we stopped and passed out little Get Along Gang characters and pins to every child. Then we went out into the hall, looked at some of their pictures, and picked out a couple pictures to take with us.
What do you think you accomplished? Anything?
Hope for better peace, at least between children, which we think we could probably do.
What prompted you to do this, to get involved with this?
Well, because it doesn't seem right now that the Soviets and us are getting along very well, but I want to be friends at least with the Soviet children, which we are.
Are you pleased that the Secretary Schultz and Mr. Gromyko are going to be meeting in January? That there may be
Yes, I
talks?
think that's really great.
What was your reaction when you heard that?
I was amazed. I mean, not amazed, but really happy.
Do you plan to return to the Soviet Union?
Hopefully sometime in later years.
Later years.
So as you can see, she was already starting to get a little bit out of the peace movement and all of that. As this response here, she says, hopefully in the later years. But so she had gotten the bug for Hollywood, obviously, from the Disney special, then Charles in Charge, and so after this, she wound up writing a book with her father about her trip to the Soviet Union and put that out. And that was in the spring of 1985. But her big break came in February of 1985, when she wound up getting flown out to Hollywood to audition for a new television show with television star Robert Wagner in a TV show called Lime Street. And she wound up passing the audition and immediately getting cast into Lime Street. And here's a little promo before that.
Dear Mr. Andropov, congratulations on your new job. I've been worrying about Russia and the United States getting into a nuclear war. Are you going to vote to have a war or not? I would like to know why you want to conquer the world, or at least our country. God made the world for us to live together in peace and not to fight. Sincerely, Samantha Smith.
Well, it took about half a year to get the letter back from him, but he finally did write back to me. And he told me that I reminded him of Becky in the book Tom Sawyer, and that was kind of weird. I mean, I hadn't thought of that. But and then he told me how they were really concerned about peace, too, and friendship, and he said that they would never be the first ones to use the nuclear weapon. And then he invited me over to the Soviet Union to show me how nice the people were there and what a nice country Russia really was. We visited the Kremlin and Red Square, where we saw Lenin's tomb. The next place we visited was Artek, a pioneer camp on the Black Sea. All the kids there had to be very smart and talented, but they're also very nice, and I made a lot of good friends. And in the next few days, they taught me songs in Russian and in English. I was sad to leave my new friends.
Someday I hope to return. I love you, Artek.
Well, afterwards we flew back home, and everybody greeted me and said hello to me. And I think Maine's a really great place to come home to.
Thanks an awful lot. And I'm awful glad to be home.
And now, 2 years later, I'm doing a show with Robert Wagner and Lou Ayres, and it's called 55 Lime Street.
I knew that she had written that letter to Andropov, and I knew about the results of it. Then I saw her on a couple of those interview shows that she did, and I thought she was just wonderful on those. I mean, her retention and her concentration and her lack of any kind of stylized thing, you know, without being told what to do. I just thought her presence was wonderful. I'm just real happy she's with us.
We wish Samantha good luck on her new series.
And she got signed up for Lime Street, and here's the opening to Lime Street. Maya was in Back to the Future that same summer that this came out. She played Michael J. Fox's, yeah, she was in that. I guess she would have been his aunt, but yeah. At any rate, so she wound up getting the part in Lime Street, and they began filming, and it was mostly filmed in Washington, D.C., in a place called Middleburg, and some scenes in London. And when she traveled to London to finish some scenes for an episode called The Wayward Train, that is when after filming that, she was on her way home, and that's when the plane crashed. But here's some of her last scenes from that show. This was the last scene that was filmed before she made the trip.
Daddy, is there some special reason you wanted to go for a walk?
Well, now that you mention it, your birthday's coming up. I wouldn't ordinarily do this, but,
You're gonna give me my present ahead of time?
no. I'm gonna give you Margaret Ann's. Actually,
It's just a card. She asked me to keep it for her.
You're trying to make me feel guilty, aren't you?
I don't think that can wait. There's something in there you'll want to use.
Okay, but I don't think this is going to work.
She made that herself. Read it aloud.
To my dear sister, happy birthday, Elizabeth. To the prettiest of most people on the whole wide world, you are so pretty to me. I love you, Margaret Ann. Okay, that's really sweet, but I still don't think...
Take a look on the back.
What's that for?
10p. That's the money that she earned at her little tea stand. She wanted you to have it, even though you made her work to stand alone. In a terrible location with the sun going down, forlorn, lonely, and broke.
Okay, so on the creek. I admit it. Are you happy now?
No, I'm not. But I will be after you talk with her.
And it was 2 days after that she wound up taking the plane trip back to Logan Airport in Boston. And then on the leg from Boston to Augusta, they made a stop in Auburn, Lewiston. And that's when the plane crashed. And here's a newscast about it. Here, hang on. There it is.
Mystery, the crash of Bar Harbor Airlines Flight 1808 killed 8 people and stilled a big dream, the big dream of a little girl named Samantha Smith. Her dream was world peace. 2 years ago, when she was 11 years old, she carried that dream into the Soviet screens all around the world. The plane crashed and exploded in the rain about a half-mile from Auburn-Lewiston Municipal Airport in Maine. Also killed in the crash last night was Samantha's father. The flight of the Beechcraft turboprop had begun in Boston. The Smiths were heading home after spending 2 weeks in England, where the 13-year-old girl was pursuing an acting career. In a statement she prepared, the heartbroken mother of Samantha Smith talked about her daughter.
Samantha couldn't accept man's inhumanity to man. She stood fast in the belief that peace can be achieved and maintained by mankind.
Word of her death was reported in the Soviet Union, but the grief was most acute in her hometown.
Almost like it's one of our own. I mean, it's hard to accept, but these things happen, and why, I don't know.
The downed plane was not required to carry a cockpit voice recorder, so investigators will try to recreate the final moments of the ill-fated flight by talking with airline employees and crews at the airport where the plane was headed. More now on the death of the girl who dreamed of peace, from John Doherty.
13-year-old Samantha.
And so this is a photo from the funeral, which was August 28th, and there's Robert Wagner escorting Jane into the church. Over 1,000 people attended the funeral. I mean, that's how loved she was and how important she was. And so that was basically Samantha's life. And I started researching this probably about 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago, probably 3.5 years ago. And I've been researching it and been working on a book, writing a book as well. So I thought that maybe doing some videos about what I'm writing about will help me keep everything in line and help me organize everything and also get some of this information out to other people. Because what I wound up discovering from the 3.5 years that I've researched this is that there was a lot more to Samantha's story than what we've seen in the mainstream. For people who do know about her, immediately following her death, there was accusations of foul play from the Soviet Union mostly, but there was some in the United States as well. And these rumors have been out there for over 30 years, and when I started researching Samantha, it's what I stumbled onto. it was really basically people who followed her life and looked at it as more of a martyr for peace. And then there were those who questioned what actually happened. And while I was researching all of this, that's when I stumbled upon a lot of information that has not been put out into the mainstream, a lot of stuff that people don't know about. She was an incredible girl. She was, and I don't ever want to take away from that at all. But there was a lot more to her story that I've come to find out. And that's basically what I've been writing about. And it goes so deep. We're talking, you've got basically every level within her life. There was always that push and pull between the communists and the anti-communists and Soviet Union and the U.S., and just always going back and forth. And there really is a lot more to it. And it goes a lot deeper than that. If you tune into these videos, I'm sure you'll be very interested to find out a lot of the information that I've uncovered. So with that said, I'll close this by saying that I'll go into how I stumbled on the information that I did, how I started, by looking at the newspaper articles and whatever I could find after her death, and going through that. And I'll go through the crash report from the NTSB. We'll talk about that in detail, because there was a lot of stuff that can be looked at in a much deeper way than they did. I'll talk about that. We'll talk about Samantha's life, her family. Jane and Arthur have an incredible history, family lineage there. A lot of interesting stuff. So we'll get into that. I'll talk about the other passengers on the plane. That we'll go into detail with that. We'll go into detail about Lime Street as well, as there was a lot of stuff going on with that as well. And if you're into the more esoteric type stuff and occult stuff, there's actually that all wrapped up into this as well. So if you're really interested in all of this stuff, I think you'll find my video series very interesting. What I've come to realize at the end of this is that Samantha was an incredibly special girl. She was incredibly intelligent, no matter what people say one way or the other. Very charismatic, and to do what she did is incredible. Not everybody could do it, but at the end of the day, and we see like Greta Thunberg now doing almost a similar thing. Although Samantha was a lot more genuine. I don't think that she really even knew what she was involved in, and whereas Greta, I believe there's an element that she's very aware of what's going on. But at the end of the day, I think that Samantha's story, more than being a martyr for peace, more than any of that, I think it is a cautionary tale of really what you should not do with children, getting involved in politics and even in Hollywood and all of that. I think is the moral of the story here. And that will be the overriding theme through all of this. But hopefully you enjoyed this video. I know it was a little clunky. It's not my forte, but and hopefully you'll tune in for some more videos, because I will be going in depth into all of this. My next video, I'll probably talk a little bit about how I became interested in Samantha and all that, and I'll go through that a little bit more, introducing that before we get into the nitty gritty. But thanks for listening to my video, and I appreciate it. And make sure to like it, or subscribe to my channel, leave a comment, share the video or whatever, if you even stumble upon it. But I appreciate it, and thanks, and I'll see you next time. All right, thanks.